Hey guys, so if you follow the pattern correctly, this is what you should get. You should get one front piece, one back piece, and two side pieces. And here's the material that I used for my side pockets and my strap connector pieces. This is a 420 denier ripstop nylon. And as you can see, I've already went through and marked what I need to do on these pieces to make them finished products. That's why the dimensions on the pattern look absurdly large for what you think you would need. It's because you need to do a lot of work to these before they're actually considered, finished. And last but not least, this guy is the mesh that's going to be on the front of the backpack. I want it to be 16 inches when it's finished, and I'm going to get my tape measure. I went with a raw cut of 17 1/4. So I'm giving myself approximately a little bit more than half an inch of wiggle room when I'm folding it and doing the hem. So I'm going to double hem that over, that way I have a nice clean edge, nice and durable, because you're going to be going in and out of this a lot. You don't want any raw edges. And this is just some lycra mesh from Quest Outfitters. I think that just about wraps it up for the cutting process. Once we get into the actual sewing part, I'll show you exactly what this means on here. But yeah, thanks for sticking around. I'll see you on the next one. Just wanted to explain the lines that I marked here on this side pocket. This, where it says fold, is actually 1.5 inches in, and I've went ahead and sewn what I've done already. So this is just 1.5 inches in, and I've just sewn it down. This line right here is actually 1.5 inches in from the top. And so what these two do together is you fold this guy over on that line. And this right here, that is a 1/2 inch down. So then when you fold it down an additional 1/2 inch, you're left with this really clean entry and exit point for your draw cord that's going to compress your side pocket. Back on the side pockets, I decided to make a few different tweaks to this current design. So where I put fold here, I'm no longer going to use that. I've decided that the fold itself is going to be too short, and meaning that the opening for the shot cord to travel through here is not going to be big enough for my personal preference. So if you fold it over just like I had previously planned, make your channel. You can see putting it here on this cutting mat. The opening here is about a little shy of 1 inch. And with a 3/8 inch seam allowance, it's going to cut it off about right there when you sew in to your other panels. So it's not really leaving you much wiggle room with this hole. I didn't really want this channel to get sucked into the seam allowance and have a really tiny entrance and exit point for the shot cord. So what I'm now doing is I mark 2 inches down. This is 2 inches in, and I'm just taking this corner of the fabric and I'm folding it in just like that. And that way, when I fold my channels, I fold this piece in, and then I do my final fold. You can see I have a lot more room. I have a lot more margin for error here, so I can get in and out of this channel a lot easier. So when you sew in, you're gonna hit about right here, and you have all this room, for your margin of error is much larger without compromising any integrity of the pack. Here's one that's finished. As you can see, this is what it looks like. It's like that on both ends. I'll pull this other end down here. I gotta trim this up still, but yeah, I'm really happy with this. And another thing that I'm going to do is to attach the shock cord. I'm going to sew in a little piece of grosgrain. I'm pretty sure this is about a half, yeah, this is about a 1/2 inch. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach that piece right here. And what that's going to allow me to do is I'm going to be able to fish my shock cord through and tie off to this end. And then on the other end over here, I'll have a cord lock. But the main reason for using this piece of grosgrain over on this end of the fabric is because if my shock cord ever loses its elasticity, I will be able to simply, you know, cut it off and retie on one here, fish it all the way through, and I have essentially a new, you know, I have a new side pocket that's going to have the same stretch and the same compression as it did when I first made it. I don't anticipate needing to replace this, but I figured, you know, we're planning this backpack from scratch. We might as well take every precaution possible. Stuff happens, and it's better to be prepared for it than to just have to make a whole new bag because of it. So I'm going to go ahead and sew all this in, finish this up, and then we will be back. Alright guys, this is the pocket design that I came up with. As you can tell, it has one pleat on the larger end and 2 of them on the other end. It creates this nice little pushed out piece that's going to allow your water bottles to sit very nicely in there. From this measurement to this measurement is 5 inches, and it should be the width of your desired backpack design. In my case, that's 5 inches. So lots of folding, lots of pleats going on in here. Let me attempt to break it down for you. I got this really crude drawing that should help, but here we go. So on this drawing here, I have it as 8.5 inches tall and 6 3/4. Again, this right here, this dimension, that is going to be your desired width. So mine was 6 on this, but I mocked it up and kind of messed around with it and just made it work for 5. So you're gonna need 2 pleats on this one. My bad. This is actually 1 pleat on this end, and this is 2 on this end. This mark here, based off of this drawing, this mark here is 3 inches in from my seam allowance, right here. So this one and this one are the only marks you need to pay attention to. This is all just gibberish that I was attempting to learn something and it didn't go that well. But this one is 3 inches from this seam allowance edge, and this one is 4.5 inches from here. And this one in the back, it only has 1 pleat. So what you're gonna do is you're just gonna take this mark, which is where the edge of your backpack is going to begin. You're gonna take it, and this is the inside material, this is the outside, and you're just gonna kind of fold it like this, just like this on this edge. And I'm just gonna go over all the way. Again, this is the piece I want to stay on. Fold it. This piece is gonna touch my seam allowance. Sorry, it's trying to make sure you guys are seeing what I'm doing here. It's kind of hard with this camera in the way. This is your 3-inch mark. This piece needs to touch this piece. This is my seam allowance. I'm gonna go like this, fold it back, and simply take this piece and allow it to touch over here. And then I'm gonna pick it up and make sure it's all even. This stuff here I'll burn off later. Actually, you can see I did it incorrectly. This is what you'll see if you do it incorrectly. You want the piece to be reverse of this. So it wants to look like this, where the edges pop out. This one, the edges are being sucked in the way that I just folded this. So you're just gonna do the reverse of this. Take it. This guy wants to touch this piece. Yeah, this one. So I'm gonna fold all the way in. I'm gonna take it like this. Fold that piece all the way in, and this piece all the way back. And you can see that's my seam allowance mark. So that's a good thing. You want that little overhang there. And you flip it back, and boom, you're in business. What I like to do is I just take these cheap office clips. I'll just clip it into place. Okay, that side is done. Now this side's a little bit more tricky, but just with time and practice, you'll be able to get it. Take this, here's my seam allowance mark. That is my 4.5 inches in mark. So if I take this, again, that's the only mark I care about. I'm gonna fold it all the way in. I'm gonna go back to about 3/4 of an inch. So I'm just gonna eyeball this. And you can fix it later if it's not what you want. So I'm about 3/4 of an inch in. And I'm gonna double back. And then I'm gonna do it one more time. Okay. And as you can see again. All right guys, here's the hip belt pocket. Here's the shorter side. As you can tell on the shorter side, it has 2 pleats. They're kind of just bunched up right on each other. And this taller side only has 1 pleat. And the reason for that is because you're gonna get your water bottles from this side of the hip belt. You're gonna get your water bottles from this side of the side pockets. And you're gonna want more room in the front end of these than the back, because your hand's gonna be going in the front end of these. So you're gonna want more fabric here so it can stretch out more, so you can more easily access your contents of your side pockets. And as you can see, as it's sitting here on the table, it has this nice billowing effect to it. So you're gonna get a lot of things in and out of this. It's gonna have lots of room for whatever contents you're putting inside of it. And again, this is going to be very helpful. You're gonna need to put this on paper just to help you visualize what is the width that you need, and then how many pleats to make up that extra fabric that you're gonna have. It is time to put on the side pockets. It's important to note that this is the side panel, and it's hard to tell from the video, I'm sure, but one of these ends is more narrow than the other. So the bag tapers up, and this is the top, and this is the bottom. And I know that by just doing this. And the contrasting colors will show you. The bottom is narrower than the top, and that's how I designed it. So I'm gonna wanna make sure when I'm sewing the pocket on, I'm sewing it on the correct end. And since this is the bottom, I'll throw this guy on here and I'll sew it on. And let me take you over. I've already got the pocket all clipped up. And I found these clips to be very, very useful. It's like a third hand when you're sewing. But really, I just went around the edges and I made sure I lined it all up and clipped it all down. That way, when I'm sewing, I can just, once I get to the point, like say I'm sewing here, it's like, whoop, I'm done. And sewing on down the line, once I get to this point, take that off. And it just helps keep everything in place. So that way, all your things are lined up. That's really the hardest part of making a backpack, is trying to make sure everything stays in line, everything's square and as accurate as you can get it. And these clips are really going to help that. So I'm going to get this sewn up and we'll be back. I have the shock cord compression straps all sewn in. It's about an inch up on this piece right here, and then it's another 3 inches until you sew this piece in. On this one, it is about 1.5 inches up from this edge, and then another 7 inches, I believe. Yep, 7 inches from this piece to this piece. And I've went ahead and sewn in a line lock, which is what I'm going to use to pull the shock cord through and compress the sides. Side pockets have been sewn on, and to keep the extra fabric out of the way, I went ahead and just used the clips that I was using before to clip back all of the excess material. That way, when I'm sewing all the panels together, this floppiness of the fabric won't accidentally get sucked into one of these edges.